Everybody, it's Emily at Arg Schooling, and today I'm bringing you my August book haul. I went into this month not really expecting to buy very many books. I figured I'd probably have maybe 5 or 6 to haul at the end of the month. No, not really. I had a few more than that. I'll say that I was excessive this month, but I did buy more books than I realized I was going to end up buying. But I regret nothing. I'm perfectly okay with what I purchased. So, to start, I'm going to show you my splurge. Because I'm like, I didn't really need to buy this, but you know what? I wanted it, and I've been saying that I was going to get it for like the last 3 years. I've been talking about buying this, and you know, I just went ahead and bought it. Newbury Comics had a sale. You could buy 2 comic books or manga and get one free, and I asked, do these count as that? And he said yes, so I'm like, alright, let's do this. Let's do it. I bought the Walking Dead compendiums 1 through 3. These things weigh ridiculous. I can't pick them all up, but I bought 3 of them. I have 1, 2, and 3. These are the bind-ups of almost all of them. I think there's like maybe, I'm not sure. I don't know how many more. After this final one, I know there's still more. So there'll probably be a 4th bind-up at some point. But I have, yeah, this is issues, the 3rd one goes up to issue 144, so I think there's still a few more after this. But I now have the compendiums. I've read the first 2 already, and I needed to get the 3rd one so that I could finish, because I think I've only read the comics up to All Out War Part 2, and that's as far as I've gotten in the comics. I'm excited to finally finish that, and yeah, this was definitely a splurge. I spent more money on it than I probably should have, but you know what? It was worth it. So I bought, well, I think I pre-ordered this, Philippa Gregory's The Last Tutor. I've mentioned before that I was really looking forward to this. I love Philippa Gregory. I am kind of trash for her books. And I was excited that when I heard that she was writing about Jane Grey, because I'm just obsessed with Lady Jane Grey. I can't even explain the obsession. I just find the story of her life fascinating and sad and tragic, and I was excited to get this, and I'm very much looking forward to reading it. I also picked up Final Girls by Riley Sager. This is a book that I've been seeing a lot lately, and it sounds epic. I love slasher movies. I grew up watching those, and this is like a play on that idea and about these final girls who are now being taken out by another killer. I just think that's awesome. I'm really excited to read it, and it just sounds really fun. Another book that I've heard numerous people talk about is Winter Song by S.J. Jones. I was on the fence about this for a long time, because basically this is a kind of retelling of the story of The Labyrinth, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love the movie The Labyrinth so much. I grew up watching it. It was sort of like part of my childhood. It's important to me. And when I saw that this book was sort of like a retelling of it in a way, there's a Goblin King, there's a girl who's trying to rescue her brother, I believe, or maybe it's her sister in this. Yeah, she's trying to rescue her sister from the Goblin King, and I don't know. I was on the fence. I was worried that this would just not work for me, but I've heard enough people say that they too loved The Labyrinth and also loved this that I decided it might be worth the risk, and I picked it up, so I hope I like it. When I was at Boston Comic Con a couple weeks back, I was excited because I saw they had a bunch of authors, and one of the authors there was Christopher Golden. I have purchased one of his other books, the Dead Ringers, which I thought sounded really intriguing, about people who look like other people but aren't, which I'm explaining that terribly, but he's a horror author, and I went over to his table and I picked up Snowblind, which he was kind enough to sign for me. So I now have another signed book to add to my collection, so you can see. So that was cool. So I have this book signed by him. This is about a blizzard in New England, which, again, I'm terrified of things like that. I hate snow. I hate the winter. So reading about people trapped in a blizzard is kind of terrifying. So I'm excited to pick this up. I was also excited because he was telling me about a event this October that I'm excited to go check out. It's a free event where you can go for the day and meet a bunch of horror authors local to the area. They have panels, they have book signings. Joe Hill is going to be there with his new book. I'm stoked. So we're totally going to go check that out. So thank you, Christopher Golden, for telling me about it. I'm very excited. And I'm excited to read this. I also picked up T. Michael Martin's The Endgames. This is the book that, again, I've heard about, but don't really know a lot about. It sounds sort of like a mixture of a zombie apocalypse and the Hunger Games, based on what I read on the back of the book, which I'm down for. It's brothers, a 17-year-old and his 5-year-old brother, and they're in this, like, game, but they're fighting zombies, I think, and it sounds really, really intriguing. I really don't know a lot about it, but I'm excited for it. I'm in a horror mood lately, can you tell? I also picked up Robin McKinley's Sunshine. I had never heard of this book before. As in my mind, Robin McKinley wrote children's books. So when I heard that she had an adult book and it was about vampires, I needed it. I need it in my life. I need to know what this is because it's vampires. I'm always looking for a vampire book that doesn't suck. Pun intended. And this is supposed to be really good. And it's Robin McKinley, and I think she's a really great writer, so I'm hoping that I love this. I don't know. I want to see, it's like it says on the back it's a dark, sensual vampire fairy tale, and I am all about that, so I'm very excited to pick this up. And it's a very pretty cover. I also picked up Geek Love. Thank you, Stephanie. You've talked me into it. Stephanie at That's What She Read just talked about this book, and I had heard about it before, and I'd been like in the back of my mind that I should read that. And then when Stephanie mentioned it again in her latest video, I was like, you know what? I'm getting it. I need to read this. It sounds like a book that I would really enjoy. So Geek Love by Catherine Dunn is about this family of carnies, and the mother and father have kind of bred these freak show children on purpose. Like, they do things to her body when she's pregnant so that she will birth deformed children, which by itself is just so messed up. and so this is like the story of their family, and it just sounds really weird and creepy and bizarre, and I love books like that. I'm hoping to get to this soon because it just sounds really weird. Really weird and really good. And my husband, for our anniversary, got me this. It's a journal. It's a Buffy the Vampire Slayer journal, and it looks like one of the books from Giles's library, to be honest. I'm excited for that, just to be on my shelf. It just looks like an old historical grimoire type book. So I'm going to take the paper off now so you guys can really see like how beautiful that is. So pretty. So this is a journal for the most part, but there are some pages in the beginning, you can see, where it's got like about the Turrican. So it feels like you're reading one of Giles's books. I don't know, about vampires, things like that. So it just looks really fun. I'm a sucker for anything Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I don't know what I'm going to write in this yet. I might not write anything. I don't know, part of me just wants it to be perfect forever. I'll probably eventually write in it, maybe, possibly. The last pile of books I'm going to show you are books that I bought either... These are all children's books. Most of these I bought for the science. I am currently in the midst of revamping the Build Your Library middle grades, grades 5 through 7 specifically, to include more secular science. So I have my hands on Real Science Odyssey's middle grade courses that are out right now, and I am adding some living books to them to kind of make it fit better with the rest of Build Your Library. So these are books that I picked up for that purpose, or that I picked up because I might use them in other things for Build Your Library. I picked up The Basics of Cell Life by Max Axiom. I really like the Max Axiom series. They're really fun. They're written like comics, and they follow Max Axiom, who is sort of a scientist superhero, and he teaches children about different things in science. So this one is specifically about cells. They have books on so many different topics. You can get them on food chains, ecosystems, earthquakes, forces in motion, global warming. So there's tons and tons in this series. So if you really if your child really likes that type of thing, I highly recommend the series. I got Invincible Microbe, Tuberculosis, and the Never-Ending Search for a Cure by Jim Murphy. I love Jim Murphy's books. He's great. And this book was fascinating. I already read it. I did not expect to love this book as much as I did. It surprised me how fascinating this topic is. It's basically a biography of tuberculosis, which, again, you would not expect that to be a book you'd really want to dig into, but it was really interesting. There's a lot of stuff in here about how science has evolved over time and how they came to finally figure out how to fight illness, and it was just really interesting. So I also picked this up. This isn't going to be in the middle grades. This is more for the climate change unit I'm going to work on next. And this is Eyes Wide Open, Going Behind the Environmental Headlines by Paul Fleischman. This is more like a YA, or geared toward teens rather. And it's all about climate change and the politics as well as the science, I believe. And it just sounded really interesting, and I think my teens should read it. To biology, we have Evolution, The Story of Life on Earth. This is by Jay Hosler. I really liked his other book that I cannot think of the name of. The one about the insects. What is it called? The Sandwalkers? Something about Sandwalkers. I'm terrible. I'll put the name here after because I'm sure I'll think of it later. But this is his science book about evolution, and it's a graphic novel. And it's just black and white illustrations, but his writing is really solid, and the science is good, and I love his book. Also, another graphic novel, I've been on a graphic novel kick, clearly, that I picked up is Primates, The Fearless Science of Jane Goodall, Diane Fossey, and Birute Galdikas. And these are about women who studied primates and their lives and what they learned, and I think this is a really interesting book. And this is also by Jim Ottaviani and Maris Wicks, which I'm sure I butchered. And this is another graphic novel, but it's in color this time. And I remember when I was a kid, my dad took us to go see Gorillas in the Mist. I must have been like 8 or 9 years old. And it was one of those movies that just like stuck with me, even though I didn't really fully understand it at the time, I don't think. But I've always been kind of fascinated by people who have studied primates and gone and lived among them, and I don't know, I find that completely and utterly captivating. So I'm excited to actually pick this up myself. I bought Genetics, From DNA to Designer Dogs by National Geographic, and also by Kathleen Simpson, and it's exactly what it says. It's a book about genetics and DNA, and it's pretty straightforward. It's full of color illustrations and just has a lot of information about all kinds of things from DNA to genetically modified foods to cloning. So it looks really interesting. I also picked up Aliens from Earth, When Animals and Plants Invade Other Ecosystems by Mary Batten. And it's exactly what it says it is. Beautifully illustrated though, which is really what drew me to it. It's the illustrations in this are fantastic. But the information is really solid as well, so I think this looks like a great book. I also have The Tree of Life, The Incredible Biodiversity of Life on Earth by Rochelle Strauss. And again, gorgeous book. It's beautiful. The illustrations are stunning. And it's really interesting because it's hard to find books on classification, let me tell you. I've been looking for a while, and there's not a lot of great books on classification, but this one looks like it might fit the bill perfectly, and it's beautiful, so I'm excited that I found it. And the last book is probably not going to fit exactly in the science or a unit. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but I could not pass it up, because as soon as I saw the title, I was really intrigued. It's The Griffin and the Dinosaur, How Adrian Mayer Discovered a Fascinating Link Between Myth and Science. This book is basically showing how maybe the ancients stumbled upon skeletons or fossils and thought they were seeing something they weren't. Sort of like how people assume that the Cyclops came about because they found the skull of a an elephant, and the elephant's skull, because its eyes are on the side, the trunk is right here, and that looks like an eye socket. So they must have seen that and thought Cyclops. So I am very interested to see how this book explains it, because it just sounds really fascinating. And my own kids are really interested in mythology, so I think that this book would just be interesting to read. I may eventually write a mythology unit, and I'm sure that I'll fit this in because it's just such a cool book. I'm excited that I found it. So yeah, that is, believe it or not, all the books that I bought this month. I am trying not to go too crazy anymore because I have so much to read that I just can't. I can't read all the books. So that is my book haul for you. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Happy reading. Bye.